Welcome to the EMEA Recruitment Podcast in partnership with Operation Smile. Operation Smile is an international medical charity that provides life-changing surgery to children born with cleft lip and palate. We would appreciate any support you can offer by donating at emearecruitment.com/operation-smile. In this episode, we speak to fellow Operation Smile fundraiser Hugh Tamlyn, who is on a journey to raising enough funds to create 100 new smiles.
So hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment Podcast in partnership with our good friends over at Operation Smile. As Rose has mentioned, we're delighted to welcome Hugh onto the show today. So hopefully you can still hear and see me okay, Hugh?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Excellent, excellent. So, we've got some really good questions to go through today, and so I thought I'd crack on with the first one, really, to maybe ease you into the show. Now, obviously, we mentioned a bit about Operation Smile, and we're going to be talking quite a bit about that through the conversation. But maybe as a starting point, given it's Operation Smile, I thought I'd ask you, what was the last thing that made you smile?
I suppose I try and smile on a daily basis as best I can. Pretty difficult in our jobs, but I try to find at least a few good reasons every day to smile. I mean, my dog Cooper, who I've probably got to mention, he's something that brings a smile. But I suppose the last time I had a genuine beam across my face, I suppose, would be we were in India recently, and we managed. Well, we're lucky enough to see some tigers in the wild on a safari, and that was a big moment for me. Something I really enjoyed.
Wow!
Kind of in the last few weeks, yeah.
That is pretty cool. Both related to animals as well. So you got the dog and the tiger. So that's
I suppose I'm being back home. I suppose I'm spending a lot more time through the summer back in Wales. So I'm getting to spend a lot more time with friends and family, which is been more difficult as I'm moving around the world for the last 10 years. So nice to be back and spend a bit more time with them as well.
No, that's cool. And then Cooper, interesting name. I got to ask, where did the name come from for the dog?
Probably not too flattering. He's shaped slightly like a barrel, and obviously with and I suppose he's a little Frenchy, and Cooper felt appropriate for his size and shape.
Okay.
He probably won't thank me for that, I imagine.
No, but it's all good. As you say, these things, they do make you smile. I mean, dogs, animals and pets, they can be guaranteed to make you smile or send you the opposite direction some days, but it keeps life entertaining, right? So it's now, as I mentioned, that we're going to be talking quite a bit about Operation Smile in this podcast, and as Rose has mentioned at the start, you do a lot of work with Operation Smile as we do here at EMEA. So I thought, I'd ask you, how did this all come around? So how did your partnership with Operation Smile start? And if you could tell us a bit more about that would be really cool.
Yeah, of course. So I think, obviously, I was born with the cleft lip and palate. 35 years ago, I guess, more on that now. Kind of hadn't done much with them. I was aware of a few charities that specialised in this space, and I suppose as I got older and a little bit more cognizant of kind of the work that those people did, I felt that I should contribute in some way. So it simply started with me, I think, doing a charity bike ride about 4 or 5 years ago, and felt like I could give something back. So just reached out to them as a fundraiser generally at that point, to do a little bit of work with them and raise a little bit of money over a short bike ride I think I did around the Brecon Beacons. And then the kind of decision that I made that I could be doing more with them. And then I kind of that morphed then over the next few years of doing bigger rides and going further afield. And gradually, kind of as I set up my own business, then we talked about a corporate partnership. So now I'm part of their sort of corporate partnership organization and try to do something once a year with them. It's until now been cycling focused. It seems to be a theme coming through. And I think this year's going to try and be a bumper year. As I said, we try and raise a little bit of money, and I think we'll continue probably beyond 2023. But difficult to kind of keep going back to the same network of people to try and raise funds every year. So we've gradually got bigger and bigger in terms of the things that I'm trying to do, and I think it's going to reach a climax this year probably, and then see what 2024 brings.
And what's kind of interesting, because you mentioned the thought of giving something back, and that came around as you get a bit older. I think that happens with a number of people as well, really. I mean, was there something a moment that you felt okay, this feels right to do now, or you feel you got the time to do it? Because I think it's a bit like a conversation I have with some people around changing a career to do maybe sustainability. So something that's more of a vocation than anything else. And you know, yeah, I think everyone would love to spend more time working with the charity. Everyone would love to spend time doing a job that's really means something to them. But the majority of people don't do it. So was there a kind of a turning point for you that thought, actually, I'm now going to input time into this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, I suppose having the condition myself, being involved with the couple, I mean, for a number of years, it was almost something I didn't talk about. And then there was a moment somewhere, probably in my late 20s, where I was kind of a lot more accepting of the fact that, this is the condition that I had. And I think along with that came the sense that maybe I could do more to help people, in the same scenario or situation. So that was probably a watershed moment in terms of, almost taking ownership of the fact that I was born with a condition, and, I could do something to try and help other people with that. It probably coupled a little bit with starting my own company. That did free me up immensely to have a lot more time on my hands to dedicate to something like this. And certainly this year, kind of the events that we've got going on has almost felt like a second job on top of the day job. But yeah, I guess if I was in a traditional 9 to 5, like with my former business, when you lump the commuting hours on top each day, you're kind of getting back in London at sort of 7, 8 o'clock at night. It's difficult to kind of do the training for these things. I've always been interested in kind of grand adventures or things like that. And I think coupling the Operation Smile stuff with that for me made sense. So yeah, that was the rationale behind it. But certainly it was almost a combination of things. It was the time and the responsibility. And like I said, I mean, conversations with my partner, Emily, about sort of social responsibilities and things like that. And I think a lot more people could do a lot more, and a lot of people do a lot of good work. So yeah, something that I'm passionate about. And then it makes it so much easier to kind of give back and do that work, I suppose, because I can reflect on my experiences about it and know how difficult it can be, I guess, sort of when you're young and things like that. So anyway, I can help in that regard is probably a positive thing.
No, it's really inspirational. I mean, I think anybody who listens to the podcast regularly or who knows me personally knows that I was also born with cleft lip and palate as well. And I think one of the things that I think you mentioned it yourself, it is actually the toughest part for most people, whether it's cleft lip or whether it's any other let's say quote unquote defects that they're born with, is actually accepting it and talking about it. But it's easy to say that this helps you, but it's very hard to get into that mindset. I mean, was there something that was there a point where you just thought, actually, I feel confident or happy to start talking about this now rather than letting it be something that defines you, if you like? Yeah,
I think so. It was, I mean, there wasn't sort of one moment I can point to, but it's almost, I guess, it's a visible difference, right? So it was almost like the elephant in the room for me at some point. And I was like, well, everybody I speak to and, the friends I've had all my life, my family all know that I was born with this condition. I know that I've got this condition. So, why, there's no point trying to shy away from that. And so I kind of opened up a little bit about it. And as you say, talking about it helped massively. And I think it maybe almost addresses, not the awkwardness, but some people are maybe sensitive to the fact that you and I perhaps were born with this condition, and I think us being able to talk about it freely, I think frees them up to also talk about it and kind of share your experiences, and that helped massively. And I think, as you say, talking about it more and doing these charity raises and publicizing that through different social media channels and things like that has certainly got me to a point where I'm more comfortable with it. Or completely comfortable with it. I mean, there's nothing I can do to change it, and it is what it is. And so that then kind of spurred me on to wanting to try and perhaps bring that change or that effect around to people perhaps a little bit earlier in their lives, because I think I was probably in my mid to late 20s before I got comfortable or started talking about it and thinking about it more deeply. And so I guess if I can kind of be a mentor in any way to perhaps somebody with the same conditions, I mean, they're pretty common, as we know. It's it's not that uncommon. Although I suppose for me growing up, I didn't really ever meet many people with the condition. When I think back to my childhood, so it felt a lot more isolating, I guess, when I was a child. But yeah, I suppose it was the the desire to kind of give something back and maybe provide that pathway, I guess, for other people perhaps who struggle with it, and parents as well. I guess I know quite a few parents over the last few years have approached me about their children being born with a condition and kind of got questions around that. And I don't think that support structure was perhaps in place 30, 40 years ago for parents. I know when I was born, my father had never even heard of the condition. And so the kind of panic that sets in when your child's born with that. And so being able to kind of have conversations with those parents as well and provide some comfort that, it doesn't massively affect your life, especially here in the UK or in Europe or the first world or the West. Different story kind of in the third world. And that's partly what prompted me to kind of do the work, because I know Operation Smile focus so much in kind of developing countries where it's perhaps not so readily available and the support's not there.
No, and I think everything you mentioned there is something, again, that has been in a bit of my journey as well. And I think, something you mentioned in terms of how people view it. I mean, I think when you start talking about something like this, it makes it less acceptable for people to make comments about it. I think if you try and hide from it and someone makes a comment, then people are they might laugh, but it's almost a nervous laugh because people don't know how to deal with that situation. Whereas actually, if you're open, talk about it, and someone then does say something negative, it makes them look even worse than what they would do if you weren't talking about it. But it's less acceptable then for them to laugh about it as well. And I think it's one of those things that I think ultimately, it's not, as I say, this isn't just cleft lip and palate. I think that's generally, any people who aren't born, and have everything perfect. There's any imperfections in people, they always get seen, especially when they're, as you say, visible ones like cleft lip and palate. But actually, I think the world we're living in now is a lot more acceptable to these things, but it's even more acceptable if you are, you're talking about it, you're open with it, and saying, this is what I was born with. It doesn't change who I am, and it makes people less nervous to talk about it as well. So I think that's everything you said there makes perfect sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, for me, I don't know about you. I mean, kids will always be kids. I think it was probably on the schoolyard kind of where. I can't sit here and claim that it happened to me often or regularly, but, there was the odd comments over the years. And as you said, anybody with a slight visible difference in any capacity, I think, are subject to comments like that. Certainly in my sort of grown-up life, it's not featured at all. And people have been very kind, but just treated me as anybody else, really. But yeah, I think getting some support for maybe those younger children going through that adolescent stage, I think could be helpful. And I think reading the kind of the posts or the publishing that the Operation Smile put out about some of the stories that they come across or encounter sort of in the developing world, and seeing some of these kids perhaps who get socially isolated almost because of the condition, that kind of resonated with me a lot in terms of, that could have been me, and how lucky I was to actually be born in the UK where that treatment was, immediately available. And some of these kids are going through sort of 10, 15 years. And in some cases, I know some people go their entire lives without the treatment. And I can only imagine how debilitating that potentially must be. So anything we can do to help to kind of solve that is a good thing, I suppose, in my eyes.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you following on from that, I mean, you mentioned a bit about the fundraising efforts that you're doing, so maybe it's a good platform to talk about this. I know you've got a lot coming up, right? So it's do you want to just go into a bit of detail what you've got on the horizon?
Yeah, so essentially, I guess the good folk at Operation Smile kind of call me up every year and ask me what I'm doing, and obviously I'm glad to help. And I kind of, as I said, every year has kind of almost snowballed a little bit. So I thought I'd go big this year. So we're aiming to raise £15,000. We've got a series of events kind of going on through the summer, mostly bike orientated, so cycling focused. £15,000 is the target that we put in place. It sort of funds 100 surgeries, sort of over whatever period. So it's going to be tricky, I think, to raise that much money, especially in the current environment. So this year we've done the Ford Ride London. So I got some friends involved with that. I've got a indoor bike ride at the David Lloyd Gym in Hampton, in southwest London, coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Regretting that one slightly, to be honest. I've done a couple of training sessions in there, and it's it's warm, and the bike doesn't move. So
Yeah.
I do think maybe I got ahead of myself on that one. That's possibly going to be the trickier of the events that we've got planned. Then in August, I think we've got an Everest challenge, which is essentially 8,877 meters, I think, of uphill cycling down here in the Brecon Beacon. So we've got a full day going up and down a mountain. So I think we're going to summit, I think it's roughly about 32, 33 times.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then that is then culminating in it's around about a 15-day perimeter ride of Ireland solo. So going out there, we're looking to do about 100 miles a day for 2 weeks, with the objective of finishing, hopefully, on World Smile Day at the Operation Smile offices in Dublin on the 6th of October. So plenty of time in the saddle through the summer. But the training's starting to get ramped up a little bit now, and then hopefully we can kind of get close to that target kind of by Christmas. It would be the options. But yeah, we've been quite lucky. We've got a few kind of corporate partners in, I suppose. So we've been donated a camper van for the Irish ride by a local business here in Abergavenny.
Cool.
So I've got my parents coming as support. The only people who could dedicate, I guess, 2 weeks without having to get out of work to watch me struggle around Ireland. And then, yeah, we've also got the kit sponsor Callis who've got involved and provided some kit for us. And we're going to be raffling off some signed jerseys by sort of Mark Cavendish and Van der Poel, which is some sort of tour leading riders that they've donated. So we'll be putting a raffle out there at some point as well to try and get to this target.
Nice. That's wow. That's really impressive. I mean, it's a big target to reach, but I think when you have these targets, you've got to do something pretty big to raise that amount of money, and you're definitely doing that, right? So it's because I mean, is cycling. Are you a regular cyclist anyway, or is this like really pushing you into something new?
So I cycled as a kid, probably between about 12 and 16. So I raced a lot then when I was younger, and then guess 17, 18, the sort of beer and women took over and that kind of lifestyle. So that was a slight distraction. Cycling with a hangover never went well on a Sunday morning for me.
Even worse now.
I dare not even consider it now. And then I kind of put the bike down for a number of years and sort of concentrated on the football and rugby, and that took over and got involved in that. And it wasn't until I actually moved to Amsterdam about 4 or 5 years ago, that obviously there's a huge cycling culture there generally. And I suppose it was a way of kind of integrating myself out there and kind of making some friends on the ground in the Netherlands. I joined a local cycling club out there and just got out on the bike and sort of enjoyed it again. And then that's just kind of continued. Signed up for a few sort of big one-day events, which were the initial kind of fundraising efforts with Operation Smile. And I can't lie, I'm still very much a fair weather cyclist. You won't see me on a bike between sort of October normally and April. But yeah, once the kind of spring comes and the sun's out, I really enjoy getting out there on the road.
No, well, I think the big difference you're going to find now, obviously Amsterdam or the Netherlands is very flat, isn't it? Whereas Everest is, you're obviously going to feel it a bit, right?
yeah. So we've been selective in the hill that we've chosen down here in Wales. It's as gentle a one as we could find. So it's about 4 or 5 kilometers long, and I think maybe about 400 or 500 meters high, somewhere around there. So it's just going to be a bit repetitive getting up and down, but not looking forward to it. I can't say I'm doing that. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a very tough day, but hopefully rewarding at the end of it, if nothing else.
Yeah, no, that's it. And I think, earlier on, you mentioned, to really to put yourself out there and start doing this for Operation Smile, you have to have the passion and the drive and desire to do it. And I think, to then go on to do this bike ride and the other things you're doing, it's got to be more than the facts of raising money. You've got to really want to do it, for the bigger thing, which is ultimately helping, raise the money for the operations. That's what you're doing it for the smiles. So it's that's going to be a great feeling for you when you see the money coming in and knowing that every 150 pounds, I think it is,
Yeah.
smile. So it's then it's going to create a new smile for someone, which is massively rewarding on that side. So it's but I guess the challenge you're going to have next year, as you say, Operation Smile ring you on the yearly basis. So right, what have you got for us this year? So I mean, it might be an unfair question to ask you what you're doing next time before you've even done this one. But I mean, what do you think is on the like a bucket list of challenges for you now?
Yeah, I need to check with the other half because I'm spending a lot of time out of the
house. Rope her in, get her involved in it, right?
So partially I have. Yeah, she's been very good actually. And she works with PayPal, and they've matched some of the donations that we've got in the past. So hopefully they're going to continue to do that this year. So very lucky with Emily as well. So in the back of my mind, I've always kind of enjoyed mountaineering. I don't want to say the 7 summits, but I'd like to maybe start ticking off a few of those over the next few years. So I may flick from sort of cycling to mountaineering. So mountaineering, I'm not going to be climbing ice fields or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be sort of high altitude trekking, if nothing else. But yeah, Kilimanjaro has been on the list for a while. And then, well, I had booked to climb Elbrus over in Russia when COVID hit, but which obviously got cancelled. I can't see me getting out there anytime soon. But yeah, probably Kilimanjaro would be the next big thing on the list, and then slowly see if we can tick one off at a time. I don't think Everest will ever be on the cards for me, but maybe a few of the gentler climbs and maybe more sensible challenge potentially. Yeah, I think I definitely look at them. How about you? You got anything lined up?
Yeah, well, our challenges are slightly less on the activity side, but I mean, I think we've done a few already this year. But my colleague Neil actually ran the London Marathon, awesome. And that's he raised a decent amount of money in the London Marathon. But then I'm actually writing a children's picture book for Operation Smile, and the whole basis of it is about a sloth who likes smiling, and then his smile gets interrupted, and it's learning how to smile and how you work when you're with other people. They help bring the smile up, and actually I'm 80% there, and I've actually got the next 3 days put aside to finish it. Basically, I'm working with a coach who's really putting pressure on to say, okay, you've done all this, you've just got to get it done now. And I chose a children's picture book because I thought it was going to be an easier route to actually writing the book. But the reality is, it's actually very hard because you have a very limited number of numbers per page, and each word counts, in these things. And but I've really enjoyed it, and I think. I'm happy with what the book looks like in my head. So I've just got to finish it off now. But so got this awesome. Book that we're doing. So that'll be out there by the end of the year, I'm going to say, when it's all written and published and all that kind of stuff. But it'll be finished written this week. That's all I'm going to say. So if the guys from Operation Smile listen to this, right, they're gonna tie you in, tie you into the event next year, and they'll be calling me next week about the book. But that's it. It's all good.
Have you done anything like that before? Or is it kind of?
No, never.
Something like that. Okay.
Never done it before, and it was just something that I thought actually, it's using it with creative minds, and obviously my son's 10 now, but I mean, it's not that long ago that we were sitting reading the children's books to him, so there's still a bit that I'm clinging on to. I think maybe it's a bit of the parent who's now seeing their child growing up and wanting to claw back some of that, those really early days back. But so there could be a mix of everything. But I think, it should be good. It'd be interesting to see how it goes out. So that's. I know we are planning a few things here, but I don't know quite. We've not nailed anything down yet, but we're definitely going to be doing a few more things at the EMEA and keep the good stuff going with our Operation Smile for sure. I mean, I want to get out on one of their missions, and go and see all the work being done. But because that looks like it'd be a great thing to see, but also good experience to be there and see how it all works. But I mean, I think probably one of the things, obviously, we also share in common is the fact that we're both owners and directors of recruitment companies or international recruitment companies. So there's quite a few things we've got in common. And I mean, personally, I always found actually that direction in the career was related a lot to to maybe what I went through life, the good and the bad, so it's relating to the cleft lip side of things. But I thought I'd ask you a bit about your journey, because as you can see, director and owner of Beacon Search, and had a fantastic career. So just thought I'd ask you, whether you see any link to kind of what you went through and how that linked with your career, really, I suppose.
I think I was very lucky, I guess. When I finished university or finished school, I went into kind of sports coaching and development initially. I always kind of enjoyed both helping people and working with people, generally speaking. Hopefully that's how I see my recruitment role as well. I guess that due to a couple of unfortunate kind of injuries, the football plan didn't really work out. And so I had to kind of pivot probably around 24, 25 into a second career. I didn't really see that panning out in South Wales. There's fewer options available to kind of graduates or young people here for sure. So I took a bit of a jump really and moved to London without anything lined up. Popped the CV onto the CV portal somewhere and just got bombarded by recruitment consultants. And I think I know the kind of sport angle is always translated quite well into recruitment. I guess the way that you communicate and kind of the teamwork ethic and stuff like that, and the driving commitment and things like that, and motivation stuff. So bombarded for a while. Ultimately ended up meeting with a small business called BSM that was starting up. There was 3 very senior kind of experienced guys in that business, and I do feel like I got lucky with that in that there was no kind of formal training, as it were. It was very much kind of learning on the desk, but I was surrounded by very, very good people. So took a lot from that. And then as that business grew, I was sort of dragged along with it, I suppose, to a degree, and kind of got a little bit more senior and got some different experiences. And that ultimately led to me being invited to go across to New York with them to set up that business, which I did for maybe a year and a half, I guess, probably in total, which was a great experience again, because kind of got a little recruitment under my belt. And so I knew the ropes at that point, but this was a different challenge in we were starting from scratch. We had no clients, we had no candidates. It was really boots on the ground and figure it out when you get there. We'd obviously made plans and arrangements before we got there, but it was a complete startup then again. And I really enjoyed that experience. And New York, I enjoyed for the year and a half that I was there. Probably, I guess, given that I love the outdoors and things like that, it really didn't suit my life outside of work that much. And so then an opportunity came up to set up the European office for them. So again, got shifted to Amsterdam probably about 2017 and took full responsibility for that build out then, with the support of the kind of business owners, of course. But the lifestyle and everything in the work in Amsterdam was again, a kind of replica of New York. We didn't have many candidates, we didn't have many clients, and we kind of just went full guns blazing just post Brexit, I guess, when a lot of banks were setting up in various locations. And I loved that experience. And sort of after doing that for a few years up until COVID, there was a slight reorganization. I thought it was a good chance, since I was so, I guess, tenured, I guess, with startups at that point. It felt right to kind of do it for myself. But I think how, I guess, my experience with the cleft conditions maybe links into that. I mean, I suppose as a kid, there was always kind of an element of trying to prove that I wasn't different. And so I would always try really hard. I mean, I was always very sporty as a youngster. I played sort of rugby, football, cricket, tennis, what have you, anything that was going, sort of up until about 14, 15, 16. And I guess that kind of competitiveness maybe came in. I wouldn't say I was hugely competitive, but there was always an edge, I guess, for me. And then I was always kind of self-motivated, I suppose, as part of that as well. And I think that probably translated into the recruitment world quite a bit. Not having the fear to kind of try new things and kind of put myself out there. And, it's a big step, and there's definitely sleepless nights when you start your own business. I'm sure you can probably attend to those, and it really is a roller coaster kind of journey, I suppose. And I've enjoyed it, and still am enjoying it. And so I think we're probably a fair bit behind you guys probably at EMEA, but we're looking to probably expand a little bit over the next couple of years and see how that goes. But every day brings its own challenges, and I guess being able to kind of deal with them head on and not shy away from them is probably testament a little bit to kind of some of the stuff we talked about earlier in the podcast, and sort of just addressing things and dealing with them rather than sort of making them an elephant in the room almost.
And that, it's interesting because obviously you've taken the opportunities when they come around. You say you traveled, you worked in various different places, New York, Amsterdam, and then set up your own business. And it's, a lot of people will have these opportunities, but maybe procrastinate on them, don't take them, and choose a safer option. And it can work out equally for them as well. But you tend to find that if I look at all the guests we've had on over the podcast, successful people, regardless of what discipline they're in, the one thing they have in common is that they've taken the advantages, they've taken advantage of the opportunities as they come along, and not overthought too much and thought, well, there is a risk element to it, but let's try this. If it doesn't work out, I can always go back and do what I was doing before, and it feels a bit like with yourself that's a bit about how you approach the opportunities when they come around, really. Yeah,
definitely. I think when I left Wales, that was probably the biggest decision almost of the 3 or 4 that I made, in terms of I'd been here 24, 25 years. I'd never known anything different, really. So moving to a big city, kind of like London, that was a big step. But I think I was there for 3 or 4 years, I suppose, in London, and just how quickly you adapt and you figure stuff out. And if you back yourself in that regard, I think everything after that point was then just a logical extension from that. So, I was very lucky going from here to London worked out well for me. And then I thought, why not keep the show rolling, and went to New York. And I think the job has definitely given me some life experiences that I wouldn't have got otherwise. And I'm definitely thankful for those. And then sort of by the time the sort of Amsterdam opportunity came around, it felt like a no-brainer. And it just, as I said, it was a bit of a whirlwind, really. You're constantly sort of dropped into new cultures and new environments, and you figure stuff out. And I think all of that definitely led me to being in a position to set up my own company, for sure. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure I'm still fazed by some things, but I almost get a process now. And I don't know if this was the same for you, but you're not as blown away by big problems. You kind of, okay, well, let's just break this down into smaller issues, and let's just solve them slowly as we go through, and gradually the issues kind of fall away, I suppose, and you can see the end results a bit. And I suppose same with this Irish ride. It's kind of at the beginning, I still get moments now where I'm like, crikey, I've got to cycle a bike for 2 weeks every day, which is not something I've ever done before. But then when I start thinking, okay, what are the steps that I need to do? What are the plans I need to make to do that? And then sort of gradually work at that, I get more and more comfortable, hopefully, with the whole thing as we get closer to the event. And you'll know, you've scaled the business, you can probably, and you internationally, right, as well.
Yeah.
It's
true.
Guide.
It's you have these challenges, and I think it's like you say, breaking things down, trying to make them step by step as simple as possible. And I think the reality is, recruitment is like any other business, and it's a bit like life in general. You can tend to have seasons you have good patches, and then when things are going really well, you know that there's going to be around the corner, there's going to be a more challenging period, and as long as you're preparing for the challenging period, then you get through that better, and it serves you well for the good period that's coming around as well. And I think that's the same, like when you're on your bike ride, when you're going uphill, you've got a downhill coming, but as you're approaching the uphill, you just got to pedal faster, it's kind of just being a step ahead, but logically, that the cycles do come round, and I think that's the main thing. So nothing is ever. The guy that we work with as a chairman has a saying that he uses quite often. Nothing is ever as good as it seems, but equally nothing is ever as bad as it seems either. So it's all often something in your head you can blow out of all proportion either way. And it's it's just trying to keep level-headed as much as possible. But that's easier said than done sometimes. But that is the best way of doing it, I think.
And how did you find it? I guess you've launched, offices sort of all around the world now as well. How did you find that kind of going from setting up by yourself through to kind of where you guys are at now?
Yeah, I think it was interesting because I set up EMEA with my wife. So this is going back 17 years ago now, and I think we didn't do it the usual way that you kind of advise to do it, by having a business plan and having everything set up before you start speaking to people. We did it the opposite of that. We started speaking to people before we even had a website, and we thought, well, okay, if we can if we can attract some business in the early days, just off the back of our, I suppose, reputation, the network, without having anything set up, then we know we're in a good situation. And within a week, we had things to work on, and all of a sudden we thought, well, now we need to get everything, set up, so we did it backwards, but actually it worked very well. And I think, I think the big thing for me was knowing the strengths and weaknesses. I know what I'm good at, but equally I know what I'm not good at. And I think it was hiring people into the business who complemented the things I was good at, but also made up for the things that I either wasn't good at or didn't have an interest in. I think that's because if you're not interested in something, there's always somebody that is. It's always someone's dream job is one of the things you might dislike, and I think it's just having great people all around you. I mean, I think, from Paul McAdow, the chairman, Richard Bailey, who came in after, 3 or 4 years, and the management team now are just all, they're all great people to work with who have a similar mindset. Without those guys, we wouldn't be in this situation that we're in, and I think that's the, that's the best way to kind of approach it, and a lot of trust as well. I think trust is a big part of it. I mean, I think something that Paul often will say to me is that what the biggest strength I have is I trust people. But I've always gone by the kind of approach where you don't know if you can trust somebody until you trust them. And you will get people who abuse that trust, but then you at least know they're not trustworthy. But then you get plenty of people who really go to the next level because of it, and I think that's the only way you can really, I think, grow a business, not just a recruitment business, but any business really from a startup, so it's been very exciting, interesting ride, and I think it's hopefully a lot more to come as well on that side as well. So it's it's all exciting stuff. And I mean, I was going to kind of ask you, in terms of what you've achieved in your life and your career, I mean, is there something that really kind of jumps out to you, as your greatest achievement to date?
Not great at self-promotion. Hard to say. I mean, I guess for me, it's been the opportunity to live and work in different cultures. I think that's probably something that I'll look back on fondly, and as life experiences, getting to live in central Amsterdam, or I lived on Wall Street in New York, for example. If you'd have told me that 3-4 years ago when I was living in South Wales, I wouldn't. It's a pipe dream, and so it really was. I think, kind of in my older age, I'll look back on that as the major experiences, and really that moment where I guess my life took a turn for the better, and changed drastically. Then I guess at that point, but they've been pretty good. I mean, I think Ireland will be, probably from a sporting perspective, I think that'll be a major coup, I guess, if I can get around there and finish and raise the money as well for Operation Smile. I think that'll be a massive achievement for me, and again, something I look back, I guess, with fonder memories than anything else. But otherwise, I mean, there's been small wins. There's been sort of, I raced as a kid and got quite a high level sort of racing back then, and won a few events, and aside from that, but nothing really major standout. I think probably I'm hoping that Ireland will probably be my magnus opus, if you will, for that'll be the thing that I'm working towards the most.
So obviously you've got the bike ride coming up. I mean, is there anywhere people can go to help follow you or make donations?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been immersed into the world of social media, which is again not my forte, but kind of under some direction and prompting, where we're going to do some video lead ups and some maybe vlogs of the ride itself. So we're on Instagram, I think, at Hugh Tamlyn, and then unbelievably, I'm also now on TikTok, which bear with me because I have no idea how it's working. But a friend of mine has actually, I think, witnessed how bad my posts have been so far and has agreed to kind of take over the responsibility for that. So hopefully the quality of the videos will improve. But that's also at Hugh Tamlyn. And I think there'll be a few sort of bits and pieces about my training leading up to the events. There'll definitely be a few video logs, I guess, of me in the indoor bike ride. and definitely on the sort of Everesting challenge that we'll be doing later in sort of August. And then finally, definitely daily blogs of the route that we'll be doing around Ireland, which will try and tie in some facts about sort of Operation Smile and some statistics with that, and a little bit about the route that we're doing that day, and hopefully about the weather and how well that's sort of holding out for me on the west coast of Ireland in October.
Yeah. Hopefully, I mean, with a bit of luck, I mean, you never quite know what the weather's going to do now in Europe. I mean, the way it is at the moment. So, I mean, we're recording this in June, and I think it's hotter in UK than it is in Spain and Greece at the moment. So, yeah, you never quite know what the weather's going to bring over here right now. But it is what it is.
Well, to be honest, I was hoping to do the ride in August. That was the original plan, but there's the good people at Abergavenny Camper Van Hire unfortunately couldn't donate the van during their peak season, so they said I can have it for late September. So we were kind of more driven by that. So definitely donate, because I'm sure I'll be cycling in the wind and rain around the coast of Ireland for 2 weeks. So
No, well, what we'll do on the post, we'll make sure we've got all of these links you mentioned. We'll put them all on the podcast post, so it's easy for people to put the donations across, right?
Yeah, and we're if you're interested, we're doing the London to Brighton. There's a few different guys from recruitment backgrounds actually doing the London to Brighton. I think it's in early September. It's about a 60-mile bike ride.
Okay.
If you were looking to dust the shorts off, I'm sure you got a bike flying around somewhere. You're more than welcome.
Get more than welcome to join.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's it. I think I've got a Peloton bike, so I do occasionally get on the bike. So maybe I should start putting the miles on that, and I'll be signing up for that. I'll see how I get on. So that's it. You're putting me under pressure now. So again, the Operation Smile are loving this podcast, I think. Right? So it's but that's so good. But no, huge thanks for being honest, Hugh. I know it's been awesome to hear the story, and obviously a lot that I can kind of resonate with as well from what you're talking with. But I think also, it's great. The network will take a lot from this, and the positive approach to your life, your career, about talking about what you've been through. It's going to help a lot of people and hopefully raise some great money for Operation Smile. So huge thanks for your time.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Nice one. Thanks, Hugh. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.